Hey, what's happening, Facebook? Good to see you guys this week. I'm here with Jennifer Brown, the superintendent for Cadillac High Schools. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
I know it's like a leap of faith to come on this podcast.
You don't know it's exciting.
You don't know what you're going to get. I was talking to Jennifer, so we'll have a little bit of fun. I was talking to Jennifer earlier. We're going back and forth to make sure she wanted to do this. And it's we're going to talk a little bit about Jennifer and what she does and how long she's been in the community. But our big hit, guys, is the CAPS bond proposal tonight. We're going to go over it in detail. I got some questions. If you guys have questions on the bond proposal, make sure you drop them in. Do me a favor as well. Give the podcast a like. Give the video a share as well so we can get this out to as many people as local. We want people to be educated on making this decision when you vote on May 8th.
May 8th, yes.
And so with us being big supporters of Local First, we want to get in on this and get you guys as much information as possible. But going back and forth, so my administrator reached out to your assistant, right?
Yes.
Is that how this initially started?
Yes.
And Jennifer said, Ryan, you got to do this. It's it's a really important. And looking into it, I was like, yeah, let's do it. And so I was first off completely amazed. You were like, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, oh, she's never seen the podcast before. And then after I talked to you on the phone, you just said, hey, you gotta tone it back a little bit.
Just a little bit with the language.
So what we're doing this week, it'll be a little different. I'm not gonna swear as much. Try to.
Thank you.
And I masked my cup. I'm drinking coffee tonight.
Very good.
Yeah. And there's water in the bottle, in case you're curious. I joked and I said you shouldn't say that. I threw you right under the bus.
You did.
So, all right, guys. Well, I tell you what, I want to touch on this last week and go over last week. How was your last week? Good?
Good.
I say last week. We go Tuesday to Tuesday on the podcast.
Okay.
So, was it good? Stressful?
It was good. I mean, the weather was miserable. So, we're kind of housebound over the weekend, which is, hard, but... And
now they're calling for like 50 degrees.
Right. By the end of the week.
There's going to be water everywhere.
Yeah.
I got a pond outside my house. It'll be nice and full, though.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
It'll be nice. So, how are you doing events to promote this?
Yes.
Like in your week, is it busy doing events too?
It is busy. We're trying to be anywhere where people are. We know that in order for people to make an informed vote, we need to bring the information to people.
Right.
Hence why we're here tonight. But any place that there are people and meeting individually, small group, large groups, events, anywhere where we can answer questions and make sure people have the information to make an informed vote, that's where we're at.
Are you going to breathe like a giant sigh of relief when this is over?
I hope, yeah. I mean, absolutely. It's been a lot. It's been rewarding work. I think it's good. I enjoy being out in the community and talking with people. But getting more back with kids is something that is important to me. So.
Good. Well, I'm excited. I hope it goes well. Just so we're clear, I'm for this proposal. I think this is a great proposal. We did not quite the same thing, but something similar last year in Lake City. And I think that was absolutely for the better. And I hope that we're able to do it in Cadillac as well. My last week, just this past week, was terrible. Absolutely terrible. And the weekend wasn't bad. I got to stay home with the kids. This snowstorm threw us for a loop. Well, we own SNR Outdoor Services, a plowing company. We had 2 plow trucks go down this week. That was wonderful. And one of them stayed down, and it was an absolute mess. And so how's our sound? Is it good? Oh, turn it up. See, I knew that was going to happen. Anyway, so we had an absolutely hard time with SNR. They say Mondays. A lot of people like Mondays. I love Mondays. I think getting the week started is absolutely amazing. However, I will tell you that if you're not running into new problems, you're not growing, right? In business and life and anything. And so we ran into some new problems this week. It was some costly problems. And I say this all the time. Life is 20% of what happens to you and 80% of the way you react to it. And that rule of thumb saved my back end. That was for you.
Oh, thank you.
Saved my back end. Because it was stressful. It was extremely stressful, but things went very well. So what I want to do is I want to know more about you because I've never met you before. Well, that's a lie. I met you last Thursday. Briefly right. Said hi, introduced myself. But I never got to know you, and it's crazy because Rob and Rocky are here, and you had them in school, which I was nervous about. I told her I think she was going to prejudge me, guilty by association. Right?
No, I don't ever prejudge. And I feel like maybe Cadillac can take some ownership in their success because they are wildly successful, right?
Yeah, they're doing good. They're doing good. I don't associate with people that aren't, right?
Right. Okay.
You got to keep good core people in your group.
Yeah. Surround yourself with positivity.
Yeah. If Jamie was not a successful person, I would have to say, if he was negative, there you go. If he was negative, I'd have to say, Jamie, I got you ready, buddy. But we don't got to do that. Jamie's amazing. So, Tell me about yourself. How long you been doing this? The impact on the community? How embedded you are in the community?
Sure. Well, I moved to Cadillac in 1998. Took my first teaching job at Cadillac Junior High School. Taught 8th grade. Loved it. I love those middle level years. The kids are kind of crazy, but they're still eager to learn. So fell in love with teaching. Both my parents are educators. So moved here with my husband, and we started our careers in Cadillac Area Public Schools. And
now, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Where are you from originally?
I'm originally from New Buffalo, Michigan. It's a really small town on the Indiana border. You don't know where that is, do you?
No,
clue. No, about an hour straight across the lake from Chicago.
Okay. And
so,
am I interrupting?
Yeah, go ahead, though.
What brought you to Cadillac? Like, what was the gold mine? Was it the schools?
It was the teaching jobs. So hired in, and we never looked back. Fell in love with Cadillac. Fell in love with the people of Cadillac. Knew we wanted to both raise our family in a smaller town. Yeah. And we've been doing it ever since. So
good.
Yep, I moved into from teaching to assistant high school principal after about 10 years in the classroom.
That'd be stressful.
Yeah, well, I liked it.
I know what I did in school, so I can't imagine like dealing with everybody. Like I was bad.
Yeah, but I love your expression as to how you respond, right? So we talk about that all the time with our kids. You can't necessarily control the events, but you absolutely control your reaction, which dictates the outcome. So I love working with kids. I work with kids all day long. They're great.
They are. See, I think of I got 3 and 1 on the way. I got Eli.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I think I got my first little girl coming.
Oh,
yeah,
good.
We're excited. It's the 4th of July. That's the due date. Yeah, it's going to be a busy summer. But I got Eli. He's 8, and I got my twins, Aiden and Brady. And Jamie knows my twins. They're 4.
4.
They're terrible. They're monsters. I can't like. And right now, we're debating on if they're going to Lake City or Cadillac.
Okay.
You could be in for a really
treat.
rough next couple of years.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyways, no, they're exciting. So you appreciate that. So you came to the area for the school positions. Mm-hmm. Your husband again is in the school positions as well. And so what is he doing now?
He is the principal at Mackinac Trail Middle School.
Okay, wonderful. And is he changing? Is that what's happening? Sorry.
He was the principal at Forest View Elementary
until
this year, and then he moved to the middle school this year to support that building.
So if these changes happens, he'll still be in the middle school?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Nice. And so you're the superintendent now? Then.
Yes.
You're running the show. 3rd
year in this position. Yes.
Is it more stress than what you had before? Because on some level, there's got to be stress.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
I think the stress is just there's my decisions impact more people. So I always try to make sure I think about that, not just kids, but the staff and the community. So there's a bigger burden with that and responsibility, but there's also a great reward. So
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah, well, things go well, right? Things go great. There's a tremendous reward.
I have 3 kids in the system. So I have a 9th grader, a 7th grader, and a 1st grader.
How does that work for you? Is it like mom and dad? Yeah, you're the boss at home and you're the boss when they're at school.
That's what my 7-year-old says.
Yeah, there's no escape.
Yeah, no, there's no escape.
That's funny. Yeah. I'm gonna tell your mom. I'm gonna tell your dad. I can hear that now.
Yeah.
Anyways, well, that's good. And so, all they've known is Cadillac. Obviously.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's good. Do you? And are you embedded in the community as well as the school?
Yes. So totally invested in this community. I sit on the chamber board. Will beginning sitting on the United Way board. I'm a Rotarian.
I don't know what that is.
It's a service club, so we do service projects around the community and raise money for like the pavilion and the trailhead, and just really invested in making sure our community is healthy and growing, and it's a place that I want my kids to want to come back to. So
I agree with that. I have this goal that with our companies that we have and my kids, my family, my dad lives a ways away, and my stepmom, and I want to keep my kids so close to me. Like when they grow up and get older, I don't want them to go anywhere. So I think making the town better, and there's actually a sentence in here that I was looking at earlier. It talks about bringing young professionals to the town. I think not only in just this, but in any structure of Cadillac, we want more younger professionals to come to town, because I think Cadillac has an amazing future in front of it. And I've been wanting to get more involved tremendously in the more politics aspect of Cadillac.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been pursuing it and I never realized how many politics were in Cadillac.
I think there's politics in every town.
I know
but,
it, but I wasn't in it before, so
Right.
I never saw it.
Right.
And now I'm seeing it a little more, and I thought, well, that's crazy to me.
And you want to dive right in.
Well, you know what I mean? I'm dip my toe in. Yeah, there you go. Get my feet wet. I think that this is a good example, right? I think that people talk a lot, and it's harder for people to back stuff up. And so when action meets, talking, things happen. I think a lot of people, not just in this area, but anywhere, talk. One of my big things we're going to talk about in a minute, is a goal, what we have for the children, what you guys have for the children. And whatever that goal is, if it's not met, what are some repercussions, or what are not repercussions, but what are some steps that we would change a little bit to meet that goal? Because it's easy to say, guys, like the president, and I don't mind Trump, I think he's got some flaws, but he said, I'm going to do this and this and this. He got elected, right? So in our situation, we could say the bond passes through,
right?
But do all those things follow out correctly?
Right.
And I think that's really important. And I don't think there's enough of that. And so that's why I want to get into
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, okay, so you're deeply invested in the community, and you've been in the schools. That's pretty much the only questions I have for you.
Okay.
I was trying to think of another one on the fly about something personal, but I have nothing. So we'll get into this a little bit. Explain to me all I did for my information. I tried to educate myself, but I wanted to educate myself with only the info that was out there that I could easily get to,
right,
without doing a tremendous amount of digging, because I believe that's what 99% of people do.
Yes.
I believe they'll get the information that's in front of them. I bet you less than 5% of people actually go to the tax calculator. And I could be wrong, but I don't think a lot of people actually go to that. And so what happens is they get this mindset that they get stuck on. And so what can you tell us about the bond, just overall, like an umbrella about it?
Sure. So, I can start with back up a little bit of history. Yeah. So about 2.5 years ago, we conducted a full facility study to make sure that we were addressing some of the capital projects in the proper order and prioritizing those projects. And they uncovered over $100 million worth of need in the next 10 years. So we knew that wasn't possible or realistic. And so what we did was we engaged the community in defining how we can better deliver education and support our kids and community more efficiently.
Right.
So the last 18 months, we've worked with the community and defined what this proposal should be. And we've come to $65.5 million, which would reduce our footprint. So right now we have 10 buildings. We would sell 4. We'd get down to 6, which would make us a more efficient organization and would save us operational dollars. And then we're asking the community to support that so we can better support our kids in healthy learning environments, safe learning environments, be more efficient in our operations, and then be able to return those dollars to our kids and our community.
Good. I think that's a good answer.
Good
answer. So that leads me right into this on one of the next things, and one of the, as I was digging into this a little bit more, one of the very first questions is, in 2017, there was a bond that was tried to pass. It was very, very similar to the one you're passing now. It was similar, right?
Yes.
Some changes have been made, but why do you think on the first attempt to pass this bond, it didn't go through? And it was close, right? It was very, very close.
It failed by 45 votes.
It was
so
extremely close.
Very close.
Recount.
But what we know is we had a lot of feedback after that vote about several different things. A lot of people who didn't have the information may not have voted or didn't feel like they could support because they didn't have all the information. So we knew we needed to do a better job getting information to people, specifically in the townships. So the other information feedback we received was it was too heavy in athletics and the cost was too high.
Okay.
So we did a few things. We fired our architect, brought in a new architect. We have a local architect, DK Design. Dean and Scott have been at the table from the beginning to kind of Scott Kleinsorge and Dean DeKreiger.
Yeah, right.
And they're checking on information for us. That's been awesome. They're big. They're invested in our community as well. And they did some creative, what they call value engineering. It's a fancy word of saying we're not willing to sacrifice and compromise this proposal, but we need to do it less expensive. So they did some value engineering. We had a gym expansion in there because we want to close our high school campus. Right now we have open campus for lunch. Kids can leave at 3 different times during the day for lunch, and then another time for AM CTC Career Tech and PM Career Tech. So it's really difficult to keep the building secure.
Right.
So we don't have a cafeteria big enough. So we were proposing we take a gym, make it a cafeteria. Well, the new architect found a way to make the junior high cafeteria and the junior high lobby in this corridor big enough to house a closed campus.
So that's a good question that I was thinking about on this is, and I don't want to jump too far into this, but on the bond itself, for a lot of the renovations we're doing, I had somebody approach me just this last week and says, can we put bids in for that?
Yes.
And I said, I don't know. I'll ask her,
Yeah.
right? And because I was curious if you guys had pre-selected people you knew you were just going to work with, or if you're open to bids, because I think that's pretty, in a bid community or in a bid environment, you can get competitive pricing,
right,
to a certain degree,
right.
And there are people out there, and I don't know any locally. I'm just saying there are people out there that will see they've gotten this large grant, right, or bond, and
Yep.
Let's go and try to get it for money purposes.
Sure.
And so, the overall purpose is higher than that. And I want the money to go as far as it possibly can go.
Right.
And so I think that's great that you are working with those architects.
Yeah, so we'll be an open bid process. If the community decides this is the proposal we'll go through with, and that is a very transparent, open process. Anyone, and I know our board is committed to keeping as much local as we can.
Right.
One, because we want to support our local economy, but two, because they're invested in our community. We don't want someone coming in and doing shoddy work and walking away. So that's really important to our board and in this process.
Another question I have to piggyback on that is, in the votes themselves, do you get to see turnout?
Yes.
Like, did enough people get out there? Did 60% of all voters get out there? Did 80% of all voters get out there?
So the turnout was pretty average, a little bit high.
Okay.
We did have a city council race at the same time, and mayoral race. So we're not sure what that will do in a May election, but we had a pretty average turnout for voter turnout, and we're hoping that we can bring more people to the polls.
Good. Well, I hope so too. That's a big
Yep.
thing that they talk about before, is that a lot of times when we have these like millages or bonds, a lot of people, they'll voice their opinion or they'll want something to go through, and they don't actually go and vote, right? And in a small town, a small area, you have to get out there and vote. You have to make your opinion heard, because you can say, man, that's great, especially if your kids going to Cadillac School in the future, right?
Absolutely.
Like, I want this to go through.
Right.
And so you have to get out there. You have to get in your car. You have to drive to the poll. You have to cast your vote.
Yes.
You have to do your part.
Yep.
Right? All right. I think that's wonderful. So, in 2017, we know that from feedback that some of the athletics got pulled out. My question is did all the athletics upgrading get pulled out, or just the majority?
So all the major athletic improvements were eliminated. So that was the big gym expansion and the track. The ones that remain in this proposal were tied to safety. So the safety improvements in this proposal were not compromised, and that was really important not only to our board, our staff, but our parents. So what's still left in there is the stadium bathrooms. I don't know if you've been to our...
I've never been to a Cadillac.
Okay, so they're pretty horrific,
Yeah.
and they do not allow for any ADA accessibility. And we have the Special Olympics there, we have graduation there,
Right.
and that is a common place for all these races in the community. So that remained in there. The light posts there have been hollowed out by squirrels, so that's in there because that's a safety concern.
Right. Yeah.
We have 2 tennis courts that we are moving because we don't have vehicular access to the back lots. So we're just moving those to create better traffic flow because that's a safety concern.
Right.
We've had kids get hit there, unfortunately, because that's where all the commotion is after school and for practices, and there's literally 1 lane in, 1 lane out. So addressing that for safety was a priority. So, but no, the major pure athletic improvements were eliminated.
Okay. Now, personal question.
Yes.
Are you kind of regretful, or I don't want to say regretful, like dissatisfied that some of that got taken out? Like, to me, I'm big in sports. Like, I would love,
Sure.
I think that's big, and it's a big proposal already. So you
Right.
eliminated 3.5.
3.5 from November.
Right, you
but
eliminated
about 40 from where we started because
Oh, okay.
it was all in
I didn't know
originally. And we just kept saying, no, scale back. And,
Okay.
And I'm really proud to lead a district that has really a well-rounded education for our kids. So we have arts, we have athletics, we have academics, we have clubs. I don't want to sacrifice any of that.
Right.
But the reality is, in our community right now and the needs that we have in our buildings, they have to come before athletics.
I agree.
So
100%.
Yep.
I see you're getting a question on there. You got to see more. You can take a look at that. I'm going to ask you another question. As we get questions in, we will stop and address them, or we'll try to stop and address them. I have one big one. You want to? Did Rob drop you something on there? Or maybe you want me to read it?
Yeah. Stop. You're gonna make an old joke again.
I just want to make a couple old jokes.
Do I think landlords will raise rent? I'm assuming is what he's asking with the tax increase. I have spoken to a couple landlords who have expressed that they will raise the rent if this goes through.
See, it's crazy to me. Again, sorry for stepping on your toes. So we actually put up on here, guys, if you're watching this, I can't see it because it's small. Hopefully you guys can see it a little bit better. But we have the breakdown of what you guys will be paying on the screen right now on the backdrop. And so I think for somebody in our local area, and I'm not calling anybody out, but I think for people in the local area, if we are only going to raise it, if it does only raise $40 or $100 annually, right? Probably they don't have it homesteaded, and so that might make it more, right? Hopefully not crazy more,
right.
But if somebody's going to pay 40 and it's not homesteaded, I would just assume it's going to be like 4 times as much. So maybe like $160 or so. I think to raise rents over that's pretty minute. You know what I mean? Like that's my personal opinion.
Right.
You know, we've been in the housing stuff before, and but I don't think raising rents I don't know. I don't know if that's the answer or not.
Well, when I've talked to, I've had a couple call me, which I appreciate. Like I would like anyone who has a question to want to know the impact, please call me or text me or Facebook me or whatever the means of communication is. And I understand that that's a business model for our landlords that's their income. So when I have talked to landlords, basically the rent would go up, the same amount, $8 to $10 a month.
See, that's not bad.
$5 to $10 a month.
As long as they don't use it as like a price gouging tactic, like,
right.
Oh, this caps bonds got pushed through. It's an extra $100 a month
right.
now.
Well,
because that wouldn't be fair to them.
And I'm only speaking with the two that I've spoken with.
No,
so,
I get that.
Out of fairness, I appreciate that honest dialogue.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. Long term, what is the overall goal or your hope for the children?
What's most exciting in this proposal for me is not, what's probably most important is to fix the infrastructure of our buildings so that our kids have buildings that are safe and secure and comfortable so they can come to school every day and learn, and we can manage temperature and keep it dry and warm. But what's most exciting for me in this is not the bricks and mortar, is that we're really restructuring our K-12 experience for our kids. We're offering preschool. We can't offer enough preschool right now. We can't keep slots open. But we're returning 5th grade elementary so our kids can have another year of foundation for their success in elementary, creating a true middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th. The huge educational advantage there is right now we're asking kids to transition at 5th grade, at 7th grade, and at 9th grade. That's 3 big transitions for kids who are experiencing all kinds of changes, and that's hard.
Yeah.
And then keeping our middle school at Mackinac Trail separate from our high school. Right now, our high school spills over about 5 or 6 classrooms in the junior high. It's really hard to keep those kids separate.
Yeah.
And developmentally, they're at different places. So what's exciting to me is this isn't just bricks and mortar. It's really setting our kids up for better education and those experiences to be meaningful and appropriate, offering academics but also social emotional support. So the money side, the business sense is we can provide better education for less money. We can be more efficient. We can shrink our footprint. And I think that sets Cadillac Area Public Schools and this community up for the future.
I think that's great. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions. You answered some of them already. But as far as, the infrastructure and the foundation of the school, how bad is it, right? Like, is it,
Sure.
Are these things like desperately needed to be upgraded, or are these things that, the cost of fixing them every single year is taking a massive toll, or what state is it in right now?
So a little bit of everything. Right now we're spending $1.8 million a year just on fix and repair.
Which is, so that's a lot.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
We've been doing that for about 10 years. We, much like the state of Michigan, saw declining enrollment for a period of time. So we right-sized. We did fix and repairs just like I did at my house. I try to repair that roof before I have to replace it. At this point in our buildings, we're at replacement. So those are costly. At the high school is 250,000 square feet. So, replace a roof at the high school is $1 million, and it needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
So we continue to fix and repair, and we'll hold that budget line item at $1.8 million and take some of those efficiencies and add to that, so we can be responsible to our capital and make sure that we're addressing those projects as we move forward on a rotational basis with a preventative maintenance plan and things like that.
Is there any concern that if the bond doesn't pass, that some of the things that would be repaired are long-term effect are going to be like really go downhill quickly?
We're seeing that now.
Okay.
We've had significant heating issues this year. We've had heating issues for the last 5 years or so, and we've been able to stay ahead of that fix and repair. And we have got great guys who can weld parts because they don't make some of the parts for these systems anymore. But they're becoming more and more costly, and we're putting good money into bad systems at this point. So it's time for replacement.
I like that. Good money into bad systems. I think that's really important. Any business, and we'll piggyback on business for a second. I think any business that's out there, you can have an amazing product. You can have amazing people running the show, right? You have amazing kids. You have amazing teachers. But without proper systems, you know what I mean? It's almost a recipe for disaster. And so I think that's extremely important what you hit on. So right into, you're talking about heat and changing some of the stuff is efficiency. When I saw these numbers, I was pretty amazed, all right? Because I was thinking maybe over the course of 4 or 5 years, you'll be able to save this much. But so it's by making these changes and by getting the bond passed, we're looking at a reduction in the annual operating cost of $250,000 to $500,000 a year. Those are some strong numbers, right? And so to be able to lower your operating costs by that much, you're talking heat,
utilities.
But how, some other way. So getting Energy Star, right?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
Heating, utilities, optimizing transportation. So having 3 elementaries instead of 4. Staffing, class sizes. So
when you say staffing, though, you don't mean like cutting people's jobs.
No.
Okay.
No, actually, we probably see more while we're doing the projects, and then a stabilization. We have right size over the last decade. So right now our class sizes are right where we want them to be. So we're going to see a 1.5% increase in our enrollment. That's the projection, which isn't a lot, but it's a little, and we're stable and slightly growing. So we would not look at reducing staff.
Good.
But we can optimize our programs. So, for example, we have special education that are in our elementaries, and right now we could offer a lower L and an upper L, or more programming to support our kids. Well, having those people in all these buildings. We have counselors who split between buildings. We can have a counselor there all the time for our kids. So those are some of the costs that we'll see return to us. We're reducing by 30,000 square feet. So that's less space, and selling 4 buildings.
That's what I was going to touch on. So you're leading me right into this.
Oh,
This is
there you
wonderful.
go.
So you're talking about reducing the footprint and selling off some of the spaces you have. Some of the spaces that you listed on here, I just want to pull them out real quick. The Cooley High School, the Cooley Annex, McKinley Elementary, the administrative building, and vacant parcels of land. And so my question is not so much, we know why you're going to do it, right? Cut cost. But let's look at the devil's advocate, right?
Sure.
Let's say the bond doesn't go through. What are some of the plans with those buildings to help your efficiency now?
Sure.
Would you still sell them?
We will sell regardless. Cooley Annex, McKinley. McKinley, people are asking, like, why wouldn't you just reopen McKinley? Because we're overcrowded in Franklin and in the high school. To get McKinley up to code would be $6 million out of the gate. So, and that wouldn't address some of the very things we just talked about previously.
Right.
So that is not a good investment of our dollars or tax dollars.
Okay.
So we would offload some of those properties, the vacant land that we don't use, Cooley Annex, McKinley, probably not central administration. That's where our offices are, behind the Shell station. That building's paid for. But we can optimize the high school space, put central administration over there. We don't have to have a separate building. Puts us closer to kids, and we don't have to maintain another facility, right?
Another question I have, so I agree with those. Those are very good points. With the Cooley and McKinley, how long have those been closed?
We closed Cooley this year.
Okay.
And then Cooley Annex, which is a building right there on that property, we still rent out to Footlighters. We have actually space for our backpack program for our kids that receive food for the weekends, and other people rent out the space to use for community schools.
Okay. McKinley?
McKinley, I believe, has been closed for about 5 years.
5 years. And so I guess the question that I would ask is why, and prior, if we're looking for more money, why has that not been sold before?
McKinley?
Right.
So currently our board policy requires us to get an assessment of the property so we get fair market value because these are community assets.
Right.
And I don't believe we wanted to sell that building until we are sure what the community wants to do with Cadillac Area Public Schools, which is why we started this process in the beginning, right?
Okay.
So what space do we need? How do we optimize our space? That was a building we looked at throughout this process of what if we just bring McKinley back online? What if we close Kenwood because it's got such problems and open McKinley? So that has been very much a big part of this discussion about how do we utilize our buildings best,
right,
and which ones will be most cost effective to use. So that's where we landed with Forest View, Franklin, and Lincoln.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. I know a lot of people. We had Rob. I know you had it up a minute ago. We're going to touch on it right now. A lot of people have confusion on how this is being paid for. Okay?
Sure.
And good. I had somebody message me earlier and say, if everybody only pays $40 or $100 extra a year, how are you going to be able to take over a $60 million renovation? And so I know it's done in different stages.
Yep.
But can you explain that a little bit more for people that don't completely understand how you're getting the revenue?
Sure. So how schools fund capital projects with school bonds are we determine and have to put in front of Michigan Department of Treasury. So it's a very rigorous process to make sure we're doing it the right way.
Right.
This proposal would be $65.5 million. In order to do that, we're looking at a $3.3 million increase. So we would charge that against property tax. That would give us the ability to generate those dollars in 3 phases. So that is over 25 years. So it's not just a one and done.
Yeah, that's
over 25 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And to dive into that a little more, Rob Sapp, pull that thing up. Anyways, so you did average income because this is not based on just land value because there was confusion. Some people we talked to said, well, this is based on my land value. And then other people are saying, no, this is based on your income. And it's actually a combination, correct?
Well, it can be. So there's a homestead credit. So if you are on a fixed income, if you are a senior citizen, if you are disabled, you can qualify for a homestead credit, which would reduce that tax burden even more.
Okay.
So on our tax calculator, you can put your income in, you can put your home taxable value, which is a point of confusion for many people. A lot of people are putting their assessed value or what they believe they could sell their home for, but it's really just the taxable value.
And taxable value is 50% of what your house is, just in case you don't know.
And then you can choose your township or city, and non-homestead or homestead, and you can calculate that so you know exactly what your personal impact would be.
Right. And so what we have up here on here, it's a part of the calculator. And so you just put in there, guys, if you're in the Cadillac area, if you're local, put in your annual income, put in 50% of what your value of the home is, and it should calculate what you're paying now, correct? And then what you would be paying if the bond proposal went through. The reality, guys, is for something that can significantly impact our youth and our young people for a long period of time, an extra $40 a year. And I know that's not for everybody, right? But if we break it down like this, and this is where I get a little blunt on it, like this is the Ryan Kelly thing. But the reality is like I buy over $40 of beer in a week, right? I buy 2 cases of beer is $40, right? Don't judge me.
No judgment.
Or like 1 bottle of scotch. All right. Anyways, so or something more common, I guess, if you don't drink beer after work with your friends. Does that help my case at all? No. Anyways, so is cigarettes. A lot of people smoke. I can't stand smoking. I get on Rob and Rocky all the time about it. It's mainly Rob, but 4 or 5 packs of cigarettes and it's paid for. Yeah. The reality is it's minute. It's so small that you could collect pop cans and pay for it every year, and so. On that aspect of it, it's not worth, in my opinion, it's not worth not pushing it through, right?
Right.
With all good intention.
And I see it as an investment, right? So it's not just another tax; it's really an investment in our kids and our community because that will return on my value. So I know my home value when I go to sell my house eventually. That is going to impact my home value.
Well, right? Having
good schools.
Good schools. Well, that's the one main thing you look for.
Right.
We looked for it as well. We're going back and forth between my son right now is in Lake City. my 8-year-old, and we are looking at putting the twins in Lake City because that's where we're at. But it's been talked about because we own businesses in Cadillac. We're in Cadillac all the time, putting the twins in Cadillac schools. And so we look at, ATC scores, and we look at everything as far as it goes. And Cadillac, on the number side, definitely wins that. But I think that's huge for anybody that's thinking about moving to this town, right?
Right.
If somebody says, I want to move to this town, there's an opportunity with Keystone Retirement Services or something of that nature, and they want to look at it like, what are the schools like? And that could be a big incentive that these guys have a really good program.
It is. I'm regularly invited for recruitment. So I go and I sit with physicians who are there trying to recruit to this area because that's really tough. CEOs will ask me to come recruit for higher level positions for their young professionals. It is a big deal. They want to know how we perform. They also want a tour of a building. Right. So I bring them to Mackinac Trail every time because
that's the newest facility.
It's 20 years old and it's in great shape and it's a nice building.
Rob, you can go ahead and take that down, buddy. Now, explain this to me as well because I was a little off on this. I thought it was a Wexford County only thing. Can you explain how that works a little bit more?
Sure. Any homeowner that lives in the Cadillac Area Public School District has a voice in this proposal because it would be a tax levied on that home property.
Okay.
So
district meaning
we have homes in Wexford County, Osceola, and Lake. Not many in Osceola and Lake, but we do have some homes. It's not the whole county that would vote for that, just the homeowners in Cadillac Area Public School District.
And it would also not be the whole county that would be subsidized that tax, right?
Just those properties.
Tax. Okay. And then that's, it's important to talk about that as well because I didn't know that at all. And I think that's extremely important. So, all right, one big one for me. We see all over the place now, all over the news, all over social media, all over everywhere, school shootings, right? Yeah. It's like I don't know if it was relevant before, but now with media, right? It is blasted. You know about it 5 minutes after it happens. And so, Rob Sapp, take that off the screen, please. Anyways, it drives me nuts now. We're all done with that. We're moving on. Anyway, so it's really, really relevant now, and it's a big deal when, and I'm going to use the word because I told you I didn't like it. Yeah. In the proposal here, it says modernizing security systems. To me, modernizing doesn't scream safety, but it scares me a little bit because that means that we're not up to par with where we should be.
Right.
Correct?
So every building that we have currently has what we call like a doorbell or a buzzer system. So you can't just walk into our buildings right now. You have to walk to the building, hit a doorbell. There's a camera there that feeds into the office. If there's a secretary there right away, she can ask you what business you have at the school, and then they can buzz you in and you go into the office. The two issues with that are, one, it requires someone to be right at the doorbell, which they're really busy, and two, there's not always in every building a direct path from the door to the office. So you might have to go through a hallway, right? Yeah. So in this proposal, there are many safety mechanisms that are in this proposal. But the big one is there's a single safe, secure entry at every building, which would require any visitor to come in through the office before they enter in the building. And those doors would be double locked so that they couldn't have access to any of our kids without express permission before stopping at that office. That's really important to our parents. It's important to us.
Well, safety in schools has got to be massively important to every single person. You got some questions flowing in here now. But I think it's massively important for every school, and so that was just a concern for me, and I think that's amazing. What are some new, other than that, what are some new things that would be brought in for security measures? So, for example, and I don't know this about Cadillac, I was told that Cadillac doesn't have like an on-staff police officer now, and I know Lake City just passed the millage or a bond or whatever it may be. Right. We now have an in-school officer, right? Is that something you guys would look at?
We do have an in-school officer.
Okay,
we would call a liaison officer. Officer Rourke is his name, and he supports our district, and this is his third year doing so. We've actually had a wonderful partnership with Cadillac Police. We've had liaison officers for, my 20 years. We've had liaison officers, and those are great partnerships, and we continue to look for grants that would support that and continue that partnership. But this is not only like safety for our secure entrance, it's classroom safety, it's surveillance systems. Right now we have camera systems in most of the buildings. We want to update that so that Cadillac Police, Wexford County, state would have virtual access to our camera systems as well. Just that's a big learning through all of these different tragedies across the United States. In addition, lighting for parking lots. A lot of our kids, our buses drop off in the dark in the winter, so
Right.
making sure that we have simple things like that, ADA accessibility, separate bus loops so our kids aren't jetting in front of parents to get to the buses, things like that we know are critical for our kids' safety, but also important to our parents and our community.
Right.
All of that is included in this proposal. None of that was cut from November.
Good, wonderful. I'm going to address a couple of questions we got here. So Nicole Hendrickson's on here, or Hendrick on here. She's talking about the transition. So her son right now is in 5th grade, would be transitioned to the junior high school, and then in 7th grade would be the schools or the transition. Oh, excuse me, to the middle school for 8th grade. What kind of time frame are you looking at for the transitions?
Right. So project completion, because we can't pause education for our kids and do these projects, and we want to have least disruption to their education. We have to optimize summer months and spring and fall, and we can do a lot of this throughout the year that are external to the building.
Okay.
But we're really looking at a 5-year completion of these projects, 5 to 6 years, depending on when we can get those bids out and get that work contracted. So if, I believe you said did you say her son was in 5th grade?
Yes, her son's in 5th grade right now.
So he would probably advance to the junior high for 7th and 8th and look at probably being one of the first classes to be in a fully new renovated high school, which is really exciting because right now our kids are in classrooms that were built in the 50s that were meant for desks and rows, and that's just not how we teach kids anymore. They need space. We have them working on projects, collaborating, creating. And the classrooms of the junior high would be renovated so that to meet the needs of that high school learner so that they can get the competitive education for the future.
Good. That's awesome. Mike Ross says, what kind of improvements would you guys make to the classroom in the schools or in tech
Yes.
in implementing performance and school safety?
So if I understand that question, our classroom sizes would be appropriate for teaching today, but the technology infrastructure will be built in the high school for 1-to-1, and technology infrastructure will be included in every building in the district so that we're prepared for the future. Right now, we've been keeping pace with E-rate and different kinds of grants which have come along for schools to make sure that we're preparing our kids and providing those supports. As opposed in response to safety with technology, like I said, having that virtual access for our public safety departments, also looking at door mechanisms for active shooter situations. There are a lot of different solutions right now that schools have been receiving information on, but we are always coordinating with our local city, state, and county to get their advice and making sure that plan is a collaborative plan because they're the first on scene and want to make sure that we support their work.
Yeah. Kyle Lockhart says, have you guys looked at, with the cost being so high right now with the schools and renovating, have you looked at possibly building a new elementary and consolidating the schools and selling off some of the old buildings? Has that been talked about at all?
We did. Through this 18 months of process with the community, we looked at all of those things. We looked at selling the high school and building a new high school, but to build a new high school today would be $65 to $85 million, given our student population. And building a new elementary, a mega elementary, would require us to acquire land that would support that many kids in one building. And the research is pretty clear that although that might be most cost effective, it's not good for education. That's just a lot of kids in one area.
Okay.
And we don't have a property that would support that many kids.
Right.
So we did look at that. We looked at new buildings versus renovating, and the bottom line is we live in a community where this is a needs proposal, not a wants proposal, and the building structures that we currently have, they serve us well. It's the infrastructure that's in need of replacement. So we're doing what we have, and we're proud to be in a community that supports that.
Right. That's awesome. I appreciate that. Guys, on here, if you guys have questions, make sure you're dropping them. I appreciate for everybody that was dropping questions on here. And make sure you do me a favor. Give it a like. Give it a share. Let's make sure that we get this out to everybody. I am wrapped up with the questions that I have for you.
Okay.
Do you have anything, my main things, I want to recap on these. Where's the money coming from, right?
Right.
How it's broken down. We know it's broken down 3 stages over 25 years.
Right.
That's a lot longer. So a lot of people think that this is an upfront cost. That's absolutely not how this is. We are going to be upgrading, or I'd say we as the community, right? We'll be upgrading as far as modernizing the security of the school, but not only just the security, but making it accessible for people that have special needs as well.
Yes.
Is a big part of it. And then saving all that money, $250,000 to $500,000 a year is crazy. That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
And to be able to save that by having more energy efficient things, and you hit on a couple other points there. I'm sorry. Energy efficient is a big one that I cut. Oh, and selling the other properties. Right. Selling the other properties, getting them down. I think that's massive. My biggest thing is that if the proposal passes, we look at in 5 to 10 years positivity, right? Just good improvements being made all the time. Is there anything that you think, a goal that you have that you think might be too lofty, or a goal that you have that you think is going to be really hard to overcome, or something to that nature?
I think this is a very practical, achievable proposal.
Right.
And I think
so you're not aiming for the stars.
No.
This is like you can meet all these needs, everything that's in the bill, all the dollars that are there. Like it's 100% planned out. Like every one of these things, there's a timeline. They will be achieved, no question.
Yes, and that is a requirement by Michigan Department of Treasury. We have to do that. It was a great process to walk through with our community because it really came down to, is that a need or is that a want, right?
Right.
Is that a safety? Like that was our pillar, right? Safety. Is it tied to safety? Is it? Okay, we can put it in the need. If it's not, then it's going to be in a want. And it was a great exercise. I mean, it allowed us to take a $100 million proposal down to $65 million.
Right. Oh boy, they're popping in here now. See, I said she'll throw your questions in. All right. While I read through these real quick, is there anything that you want to touch on, like something that other than get out and vote on May 8th?
Right.
Is there something other than what we've talked about that that's important to you that you want people to know, or maybe a misconception or anything like that? We covered a lot. We did pretty good.
Yeah. Well, one, if there are misconceptions, if you feel like something doesn't sound right or you hear something that doesn't sound right, please call me. My direct extension is 876-5006. Email me. You don't have to give me your name. If you want me to walk you through that calculator, we just want to make sure before May 8 people have the information to make an informed vote. We know that last time we brought this community, it was close. We really want to make sure, specifically our parents and our young professionals, but everybody really shows up to the polls to cast a vote.
Right. Jamie asked a really good question. He said, do you foresee in the future – ooh, we got more questions coming in. Oh, my goodness. So do you foresee in the future with a 3-stage plan taking 25 years, do you see another millage needing to be done or another bond needing to be done in the future because of especially with technological advancements that are happening?
I think that's a great question because when we did this proposal, and I say we, and I'm talking about hundreds of people, it was very clear from the beginning that we want to do this the right way. We didn't want to do a little bit and a fix and repair and have to come back in 5 to 10 years. I don't want to have to do that. I don't want to mislead people. This proposal is doing it right. It's restructuring the grades, it's enhancing education, and it's attacking every single building and what's necessary. And those infrastructure systems, they're 25 years of life, right? So there's no reason we should have to come back to this community and say, the boiler went, or we need a new roof. This is the right proposal.
I think that's absolutely amazing. And so that's important. We didn't touch on that. I'm glad he asked that, is the fact that in the future, not seeing another millage or another bond proposal. I think that's really important, guys. And so wrapping this up a little bit, I appreciate your time.
Yeah,
I think you're coming on. It was a little bit of different of a shift for us, right? But I think it's important.
What did you say? If you're not challenged, you're not growing. What did you say in the beginning?
No,
right?
If you're not running into new problems,
there you go.
You're not
there you go.
Right?
If you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing, right?
Every amazing thing happens on the opposite side of fear.
Right.
I think that's important. So, guys, make sure that you get out. Get out and vote May 8th. Where can they vote at?
Well, they have to go to their township or their city
Township
precinct.
Hall, right.
Yep.
Okay.
If you don't know where that is, call me. I'll let you know. I can look it up. There's online. You can look it up yourself. You put your address in. It can tell you where you're registered.
I think one of the biggest thing, guys, is too many opinions go unheard, right? And so a lot of people, you have an opinion. If I ask you your opinion, you'll give it to me. But when you get an opportunity to really make a difference and get out there and vote, a lot of people don't take advantage of it. And so I really encourage everybody that lives in the local area to get out there to vote. And this could be, in 5 to 10 years, the reality is, especially if you got kids and grandkids that are getting ready to go through this, you know, as a grandparent or as a parent, like as a parent, I want the absolute best for my kids. And as a grandparent, I imagine you want the absolute best for your grandkids. And being able to say, you know, we passed this millage or we passed this bond in 10 or 15 years and all the benefits that it's going to reap, it's going to be very, very satisfying for everybody. So I appreciate you I appreciate you being on, having me on. I appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you having me on.
Right. I appreciate you being on. I appreciate you overseeing some of my language in the last one and seeing some positive content. I think that's big of you.
Well, thank you.
Because a lot of people could have watched it and be like, you have a good message, you have good motivation, you have good business, but man, your mouth's terrible, and I don't want anything to do with that.
But look, you cleaned it right up for me, and I appreciate that.
It was challenging. You might have seen me red a couple times through here. I got a little red glow anyways. But I was trying to hold back. I had to watch what I'm saying. Because the podcast is kind of where I have a lot of clients for Keystone.
Right.
And I tell them, like, I love to do this. I enjoy to do this. I'm very open about doing this. I said, but Rose Lockhart, I love Rose.
Right.
And I say, Rose, you can't watch it. Like, you're not allowed to watch it. And when I see her get on here, I filter it. No, I filter it.
Okay.
I filter right away, instantly. So, all right, guys, I look forward to seeing you next week. Next week, we got Jordan Shepler on. Jordan Shepler owns AFC Homes in our local area. He's built an amazing reputation with those AFC Homes, and he is a very young person that is doing extremely well in our local area. So we're excited to have him on. Thanks for being on again. Get out and vote May 8th. We'll talk to you next week, guys. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you.